Welcome back to Slots and Locks. I'm Tim.
And I'm Mello, the podcast where we explore gaming, internet culture, psychology, and the systems that shape how people think and behave.
All right. Today's episode is all about France. I think for a few different reasons, but everyone may or may not know, but to all our French listening audience, it marks Bastille Day, which is France's national holiday, a celebration of resilience, identity, and one of the most recognizable moments in the country's history. And I would say what's remarkable this year is that France also finds itself playing in the World Cup semifinals on Bastille Day. So while millions of people are celebrating throughout France, millions more are watching to see if Les Bleus, I'm sure I butchered that, could take another step towards a World Cup title.
Yeah, I may be ignorant here, but what is Les Bleus?
That's a good question.
Is that the
The
name
the
of their
French the
team?
French team, I think.
Is that the name? Oh,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's okay. Did the U.S. have a name? Do we have a name?
I don't know, but maybe that's the name of the French national team itself.
So yeah, so I know Les Bleus, and I think Australia was the Socceroos. But yeah, I was curious. Anyway, yeah,
I
and
think I think
it's
it's French for the Blues, and that's their
oh, and
color.
because
Yeah,
they wear blue, they have a blue kit. Is the soccer thing called a kit? It's called a kit,
I'm not
right?
I'm not sure, but
Oh.
if anyone actually is listening to this and wants to mock us for our French historical
It's not
football,
French. It's our ignorance in football.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, and it truly is hard to imagine a bigger stage. I believe they are the odds-on favorite to win at this point in time. All the
yeah,
underdogs are now gone. It's basically the big four without Brazil, which would be the big five, but it's the big four. And it coincides with one of the country's biggest holidays. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the world, or it is the biggest sporting event in the world every 4 years. And it's a chance to continue building one of the greatest football legacies of the modern era. Football legacies.
yeah. And so today I think we're going to do a few different things, but we're going to look at France throughout the lens of uncertainty. We've kind of been hitting this theme quite a bit. And I think it's an underlying theme of a lot of different videos we've been talking about. We'll talk a little bit about French roulette and other versions of roulette and how they compare. I think there's, especially in America, it always baffles me when people play American roulette when there's a European or French roulette available. We'll talk about that in a bit. We'll talk about why France consistently enters major tournaments as one of the favorites, specifically around the World Cup. We'll look at prediction markets and how they change throughout the World Cup itself. And I think we'll explore why expectations can become both an advantage and a burden itself. And so we always have to caveat this since we're showing a game that, this channel focuses on the psychology, design, culture, and of gaming and entertainment. These discussions are educational and analytical and not intended to promote gambling at all.
I was struggling not to say anything. So let's get into it.
Go ahead. You can say anything.
Oh, now
All
you're
right.
putting me on the hot mic. And I lost my train of thought. I'm good.
Put you on the spot and you're not there. And when you say France, Spain, England, and Argentina are big four, would Germany fall in there typically?
Germany?
Yeah.
There were people talking about soccer backslash football on the radio this morning, and they called them the Big Four, and they have a podcast. It's a pop out podcast about soccer. I don't remember the name of the podcast, Line In or something like that. I don't know. They said the Big Four. So I'm just quoting what they say because they know obviously much more than me. I'm assuming.
Fair
They
enough.
seem like they knew more. They seem like they knew more.
Well, and I think the live FIFA rankings, those four teams are the top four ranked teams. And now I don't know if it's skewed because it's the World Cup and they arbitrarily move them up. But France and Argentina and Spain were all up there. Say England, I don't know if they're number four, but either way, they're definitely some of the top teams. All right, so let's think. We keep starting this off, and as gratitude and reflection, I think it's a good place to start. And if I think about something I'm grateful this week is really tradition. It's gonna be an underlying theme we talk about here, and I think some traditions are only meaningful because they're repeated. Birthdays, family dinners, sporting events, national holidays. They remind us that we're connected to something larger than ourselves. And when people gather year after year to celebrate, they're really celebrating shared memories. And I'm personal though too. I say to my kids all the time, is life is more about experiences and having memories and things like that, and that's what gives life a lot of meaning. Now, you could argue there's other things as well, but you don't remember all the time the bad things, but those experience, that growth is really what drives a lot of life and the beauty of life.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've transitioned more and more into like international sports, particularly tennis. Tim, were you aware that I like tennis?
No, I feel like we might have done an episode on tennis, don't you think?
Yeah, we just did. Anyway, yeah, but
And you
and
should
so for
watch it. You should link it here, right?
we should link it definitely. And I think for a few weeks, millions of people who may disagree on almost everything, especially with the way the world is going today, can almost suddenly have something in common. They're pulling either in the same direction or, you know, whether it's Alcaraz or Sinner, Italy or Spain, whatever, they're pulling for the right thing, right? And you see grandparents watching their grandchildren, friends gathering together, entire cities stopping to watch one match. In this particular case, in FIFA, just in some of the scenes of New York watching FIFA when the U.S. was winning. I mean, it's amazing because it just brought all the boroughs together. I mean, it was just a powerful thing to watch.
Definitely. And it's easy to think because sports are just entertainment. But when you look at events, and we've had a couple other World Cup conversations with Brazil and Argentina, highly recommend checking those out. But we look at other events like the World Cup, they're much more than that. They become like part of the country's identity. People remember exactly where they were when their team won or lost, and those memories last a lifetime. Now, let's transition a little bit to focusing more on France as a whole, and to kind of get a little deeper. Bastille Day is France's, I would say, one of France's most important national celebrations. For many people outside of France, they think of fireworks over Paris, military flyovers, parades along the Champs Elysees. And I don't know if I said that right. Champs Elysees.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
but what makes the holiday interesting isn't just a celebration, it's what it represents: national pride, unity, resilience, the idea that difficult moments can eventually lead to something better. Have you ever been to Paris
Yes.
or France? Yeah, me too. Been to
Yes.
France a few times. Beautiful city.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Paris is okay. I mean, I like Paris. It's so big. It's so massive. I got engaged actually in the gardens of Luxembourg. So there,
I have a
take
story
that.
when I went to the Louvre there. Have you ever been to the Louvre?
I've been in front of the Louvre. It was too crowded. I did not go.
Yeah, so I went in, and some people say they could take 3 or 4 days to kind of like, hit in sections. I did it in one day, which was probably rushed. You get to a point where there's so many like pictures of Jesus in this wing, or like the apostles and stuff like that, and they're like, there's so many pictures and so many beautiful things there. And then I sat down at this random spot. I've been trying to find this picture ever since, but it was a picture of this woman on a tree stump in the woods, and she was like crying with her. I think it was like a Roman soldier leaving off the war. And something, I just sat there for probably about 30 minutes just staring at the picture. I was just completely mesmerized by it. I've never been mesmerized by artwork like that ever in my life. And I just couldn't look away. It just, the emotion, it was that picture was speaking to me. And anyhow,
It
off
spoke to you.
topic, but it was an amazing picture. It seems so simple, but ever since then I've been trying to find this painting and try to see it again, but I'm not sure if it's still in the Louvre for that matter. All right, let's go back to Bastille Day.
I mean, is that something you just came off the cuff there? Just ripping that out? Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
and that's very similar to sports. I mean, every World Cup becomes another chapter in a country's story. And I think that one of the best stories of this is in 1986 I think it was in Mexico City. It was a quarterfinal between Argentina and England, which is, I'm sure they're going to talk about it. Okay. There was some question as to whether Diego Maradona actually had touched the ball with his hand. Are you
A handball.
familiar with this?
Yeah, I am.
So he all of Maradona stood all of 5'5", and he leapt against the goalkeeper Peter Shilton and punched the ball into the net with his left fist. The referee and linesman totally missed it. They don't do the replay like they do now, and the goal stood. And England was obviously furious at this. So, and after the match, Maradona famously said, "The goal was scored a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God."
like
Which
jabbing the English player, the English team, and the English fans, right?
so yeah. So naturally, some years bring heartbreak. In this case, it was for England. This year, it's going to be just kind of a memory of that heartbreak. Some years bring triumph. Again, for Argentina, a memory of that triumph. But every tournament becomes part of the national memory. France, in this case, has experienced both. They have lifted the trophy. They've fallen short before. When was the last time they won the World Cup?
Good question. I'm sure it was 2018.
Hello? So they won in 2018 in Russia, beating Croatia 4-2 under Didier Deschamps with a young Kylian Mbappe starring. He still plays, by the way. And I know I bushed names.
It might get the boot award. No, that is.
Kylian Mbappe. I know it's Mbappe, but is it Kylian? Kylian Mbappe. That's fun to say. Anyway, they were dealt enormous expectations every time they step onto the pitch, and we're back at it. And I think they are hands on the favorite, right?
Yeah, they're way ahead as a favorite, partially because of Mbappe. Yeah, and so I think let's one thing I've always kind of found interesting about France is that their elegance seems to show up everywhere. Architecture, cuisine, fashion, automobiles, even casino games for that matter. And one of the most iconic casino games associated with France is French Roulette. And at first glance, it looks almost identical to European roulette. The wheel spin, the ball bounces, players place their bet. Simple enough. But underneath the elegant presentation are some fascinating differences.
Yeah. And that's kind of where game design becomes really interesting, right? Most people assume roulette is just roulette, but there are actually three major versions. There's American roulette, there's European roulette, and today there's obviously French roulette. And they all have somewhat a similar feel, yet one of the two design decisions alters the math experience.
Yeah, so let's talk about it a little bit. So let's compare them. So American roulette has 38 pockets. When we see pockets, we're talking about numbers 1 through 36. And they have a single, and they also have a double zero. European roulette removes the double zero, and I think we'll probably talk about house edge, but the house edge on the American roulette is 5.26%. On European, it's 2.7%. And then there's like in European roulette, there's only 37 pockets. So that, again, single, zero, and 36 numbers. And immediately the house edge, like I said, drops significantly.
Yeah, and French roulette, much like European roulette, uses the single zero wheel. So from a mathematical standpoint, it's already more favorable than American roulette. But then it introduces something totally unique. Player-friendly rules like la partage and en prison. I'm just going to call it en prison. There you go. I'm sure I said it right somewhere in there. I can also use AI speech to make my sound better. Anyway, these only apply to even money bets like red or black or odd or even or high and low. If the ball lands on zero, instead of losing your entire wage completely, you may get half your bet back or have your bet carried over to the next spin. Typically it's the latter, depending on the rule in use. And that is a subtle change. But it has a meaningful impact on the long-term experience. And it can, depending on the particular rule, it actually doubles your house advantage. I'm sorry, doubles the player's advantage from, what is it, 2.5?
2.7 to 135.
Yeah, 1.35 to 2.7.
Yeah, so if you didn't listen, we'll put something on the screen as well. But if you didn't listen to anything we just said, know that you never want to play American roulette, European, and even better, play French roulette. And I think that's what's fascinating. One minor, small rule, one tiny design adjustment, it changes how players perceive fairness. It changes risk. It changes strategy. Even changes how people feel while they're actually playing itself. And I think when we talk about kind of like one of the themes we keep coming back to on this podcast is that tiny design decisions often create massive behavioral differences. Adding one extra pocket to the red wheel doesn't sound like much, but it's just one more space. Yet mathematically, it doubles the standard house edge compared to the single zero. Most people would never even notice just by watching the wheel spin. But over 1,000 spins, that one design decision changes completely everything.
Yeah, in fact, to make matters more, we could even add a fourth one here. We're not going to do it, but there is a Vegas Strip version which actually has a 3-0. So so play that one too.
Yeah, if you want to
So
lose.
yeah, and again that again is a reminder of our perception and probability. Those two aren't always aligned. So visually, like American roulette and French roulette feel almost identical. Emotionally, they feel almost identical. Mathematically, that's where the difference comes, right? And players, I think, tend to focus on what they can see. And it's pretty clear as day. You have the double zero and the single zero, top and bottom. And I think the triple zero is like split into thirds. It's actually kind of hokey when you actually look at it. Anyway, but they're very different games. So, and the wheel, the colors, the excitement, they rarely think about the mathematics underneath, but they are meaningful, especially for players if you play a long run.
Yeah, and I would say like one of our goals here is to, if you're going to gamble and play games like this, you should obviously do it responsibly. But you should know how some of the odds work and know behind the scenes of math and what to look out for. And this is one of them. If you're going to play roulette, be smart about it. Yeah, and I would say like one thing I really appreciate about French roulette is the kind of the presentation. Everything feels really intentional. The French terminology, the slower pace, the table layout, the interaction with the dealer, the atmosphere feels refined, almost ceremonial. If you ever spent some time in France, it goes with their culture in a way.
Yeah, and that's because great games aren't just about the math, right? They're about experiences. Obviously, the rules matter, but so does the presentation. Designers understand that people don't simply remember outcomes, they remember how a game made them feel. And I think French roulette has managed to create an experience that feels somewhat sophisticated. I mean, they are the creator of Baccarat as well, my friend, while still being based on the exact same fundamental concept as every other roulette wheel.
Yeah, I think I wonder which one came first, chicken or egg here. But I feel like in America we find a way to make it more profitable. Yeah, that's what we give to the world. Find a way to make a game that might have been fun for players into something that's more of a house edge, right? Hot take.
I mean, I mean, there is a hot take, but I mean, I think technically, historically, I mean, roulette is a purely invented game in France, right? And I think the original one, the dual zero, did come from France, and it was the single zero that became French roulette that actually came out of it because it had a competitive edge. But I mean, in your comments, we can, this could be the same argument as we did with flight with Brazil and the Wright brothers as well. You know,
There you go. All right. And that's going back to that. I think it's a great lesson game designers have understood for decades. Presentation changes perception, even when the online mechanics remain almost identical itself. Now, I think this brings us to another place where France consistently performs at the highest level, which we kind of referenced it already, which is football. And not American football, but actually football, as the Yanks call it, soccer. But at first, roulette and football don't seem to have much in common. One is built entirely on mathematics, the other depends on athletic performance. But both have one thing in common, and people spend enormous amounts of time trying to predict the outcome.
exactly. And so, whether it's a roulette wheel or a World Cup semifinal, people naturally want certainty. They want to know what's going to happen, obviously, before it happens. And that's exactly where the prediction markets become so interesting.
Yeah, so let's shift our attention to football. If you watch international football over the last 20 years, you probably noticed something. France is almost always one of the favorites. Whether it's the World Cup or the European Championships, they're consistently among the teams everyone expects to be competing at the end of the tournament. That isn't luck, it's consistency.
People sometimes talk about a golden generation, one incredible group of players that comes along once every few decades. France seems to produce them over and over again, almost every decade or what is it, every third World Cup.
It seems like that.
Uh, so every tournament introduces another wave of talented players. Obviously, veterans retire, new stars emerge or mature. Yet somehow the team continues to compete at the highest level. It's about having an effective system.
Should we break up the famous World Cup head?
I'm unsure of this. What is the world famous headbutt?
You never seen it? It was a meme back in 2006. Basically gets Italian defender. He went and like headbutted him. He got the red card, but it turned into a meme where everyone would do the headbutt and stuff like that. You should definitely look it up. It's fascinating. It went through a back then. It was like almost not pre-internet days, but early days where it was harder to get viral. But people still, I think people still talk about it today. I wonder whether
Was
that's
it
like
like
something. controversial in France, or do they find it funny?
Was it analog viral?
Probably was in the early days of, I can't remember when the iPhone came out, but Italy went on to beat France tournament, so maybe it's not looks fun. Very good. They beat them in the penalty shoot shots 5-3, and they went on to win the championship that year, six, I believe it was. But it was, I know in the U.S. From the U.S. standpoint, it was quite humorous to say the least. All right, let's see. And going back to what you're saying, that consistency changes expectations. People don't just hope France will do well; they expect it to do well, and that's where pressure begins. And so, I guess the question is, why does France consistently enter major tournaments as one of the favorites? It's more than just having talented players. Tell us, so wise one, Mello.
It starts with depth. And for depth to be strong, it needs a good system. It's called the Central Academy model. And essentially, what happened is in 1980 they flopped, and so at youth level, so the federation, the FFF, built the INF Clairefontaine in 1988. It's a national elite academy outside Paris, and they have a network of regional pre-training centers. So the model, they identify the best 13-year-old kids nationally. They give them elite coaching at 13, and during the week, return them to their clubs on weekends. So people like Henry, Nelka, Mamape, and dozens of others came through this system. So crucially, so France also then mandated that professional clubs run licensed academies to hold a League One spot. So it's a national culture. So what that means is if one player gets injured, it just fills it with another world-class player is usually ready to step in. And very few countries have that luxury. And then there's the experience, right? So many players, French players, also compete for Europeans' biggest clubs. So they're already used to be playing in high pressure matches every week against top tier talent.
It's amazing to watch the U.S., where I think we're so large and we should be really good, but we're starting to get that talent system. It's getting better. But I swear the difference between U.S. soccer versus European on these club systems, stuff like that, is the gap seems really large after the Belgium match. But anyhow, based off that, I guess based off what you're saying, that there's also the continuity, strong coaching, youth development, professional academies, a system that's been producing elite players for decades, and success isn't an accident; it's built, and because it's built over time, prediction markets recognize that.
Yeah, and I think you're also seeing this process replicated in African countries as well. And so that's why you're seeing them moving farther and farther along in these tournaments.
Interesting enough, I think I heard something that this World Cup they added more teams to qualify into
Right.
group stages. And so a lot of times, a lot of the African players had either dual citizenship or something like that. So they'd go play for England or some other country like that because they couldn't play for their home country because they wouldn't qualify and they want to go to the World Cup. This one, they extended it. So you saw a lot of teams like Cape Verde, for instance, that had a team because they qualified and they did phenomenal in the tournament. Anyhow, but I would say the one thing I love about international tournaments is watching how prediction markets evolve. Before the tournament starts, analysts combine or years of information, player ratings, injuries, historical performance. We talked a little bit about on the Wimbledon episode, similar it can in terms of how they rank it, but I think with soccer is a little or football is a little bit different. They can go through, like I said, player ratings, injuries, historical performance, team chemistry, coaching, the recent form, all of that becomes one number, one probability, one estimate of is, how likely each team can win or will they win for that matter.
And that estimate isn't fixed, it's alive. So every match changes it. Surprise result will change it. An injury changes it. Suspension changes it. Red card changes it. So, except when the red card is nullified. Whole other story. A dominant performance changes it. Prediction markets don't predict the future just once, like a trad sportsbook. They continuously update their beliefs as new information becomes available, most of the time in real time.
Yeah, and just to talk about prediction markets, I think at the start of it, Spain was actually the favorite to win it all. And then at some point, France passed Spain. And now, right now, England is actually slightly ahead of Spain. I think partially because England plays Argentina and France obviously plays Spain, but it's really close, but France is still the odds on favored. Yeah, and I think to your point, that's a really important distinction. People often ask, who does the market think is going to win? That's actually the wrong question. I think the better question is, what does the market believe is most likely to happen right now? And they're very different ideas. Let's look at it specifically. Before the tournament, they were already among the
Exactly.
favorites. Yes. Like we just said, as they advanced to the group stage, confidence grew. Then the knockout rounds began. Every victory strengthened the belief that France could go all the way. But notice what happened. The market didn't suddenly decide France was unbeatable. It just simply adjusted expectations with every new piece of evidence.
That is exactly what prediction markets are designed to do.
You like that word, don't you?
Today it's my favorite. Imagine watching the tournament through the eyes of the market, right? Every 90 minutes you learn something. Maybe a defender's carrying an injury. Maybe the goalkeeper's playing the tournament of his life. Maybe the best player on a team gets a red card, and the president of that country knows the owner of FIFA gets things changed.
FIFA.
Maybe a young striker suddenly finds confidence. Every new piece of information changes the probabilities. And that's why the market prices moves in prediction markets. Not because people are emotional, although, the bettors can be emotional and they can, kind of trigger that a little bit, but because information is changing. And that is actually the trigger of the emotional change.
Yeah, and what's exactly fascinating is that fans often do the exact opposite. One big win, and suddenly they think their team can't lose. One disappointing performance, everything, and they just assume that everything is falling apart. Markets usually respond much more gradually. They're trying to estimate probability, and fans often overreact emotionally. Now,
Yeah, I mean, did you wait? Did
go
you
ahead.
know that in the Bay Area that the Switzerland was like one of the most celebrated teams this year? Did you know
Hmm,
that?
I
And
did not.
apparently
They got
because
they got
there's
screwed.
like well, they did, but there's like 10 or 11 Swiss clubs that are pretty active around here. Were you familiar with that?
I don't think I realized that.
I
My
know.
my wife is Swiss, so
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up to you.
yeah, we were pissed watching that game. I had to tell you, I think that throughout the tournament, that VAR system, I don't really understand. Had they not called a yellow card against Argentina, the Swiss player wouldn't got the yellow card. It's just a weird, strange rule. I'm not saying he didn't flop, but the amount of people that flopped over and over again, it just kind of ruined a great game, frankly, because it just, I don't know. I'm a little bitter about the outcome. I thought Switzerland played great. They that they controlled the ball and they're in the driver's seat in that game too. But anyhow,
Oh my god. Are you gonna be here on August 1st? You are, right?
go back on the
Oh.
29th.
Oh, oh, you go back. Because apparently Swiss National Day is on August 1st. And the Swiss Park, which is in Newark, California, is a Swiss-owned club with a bar and grill, banquet hall, and they do nights. Are you familiar with that? And they
Raclette.
have they raclette nights, and they do like a Swiss National Day on August 1st.
Raclette, if you ever have a chance to go to it, fantastic. The raclette is awesome. What they do is they take this like heater and they have this huge block of cheese and they melt a top layer of cheese on this huge block of cheese and they carve it with a knife and put it over like fresh potatoes, pretty much. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it.
I mean, yeah, there's like
Raclette is a type of cheese. You should definitely
yeah,
go
there's
to it,
like
dude.
there's literally like 10 of these in the Bay Area. I can't.
Gonna have to move
You
back
should bring
out.
it. You should bring it up to your one.
Yeah. All right. So I actually think French roulette gives us a great way to understand prediction markets. So when you spin a roulette wheel, the probabilities don't change, the mathematics remains fixed. The ball doesn't remember what happened on the previous spin, although there's plenty of roulette players that think because black hit 10 times that the probability of hitting black again or red is somehow different. But yeah, that's a whole other
Well,
conversation.
speaking from a math perspective, though, I mean, while the coin, it's the same with the coin toss. I mean, you're not really betting on the probability of it changing, really, as much as you are betting on the likelihood of it changing, which is just natural, I think, with that kind of stuff. But with that said, football's different. The probabilities change constantly because the information changes. As we said before, a team that looked unbeatable before the tournament or during the tournament, like, the US suddenly doesn't look so much due to some other issues. Who knows? It could be the loss of a key player. An underdog may discover confidence, and sometimes momentum will always change. Momentum changes like 10 times every game anyway. And those
Yep.
probabilities evolve. And that's what makes football so fascinating. One game, roulette, has fixed mathematics. The other game, sports contests, etc., in this case, football, has changing information all the time. Both built around uncertainty.
Yeah, and here's something I've always, is it actually harder to compete as a favorite or as the underdog?
I mean, I think from a tennis perspective, and I think Martina Navratilova said it the most, is it's much harder to be the favorite, right? Because underdogs, there's not a whole lot of expectation for an
Yeah.
underdog to play freely. Nobody expects it to win. Favorites, however, carry expectations everywhere they go. And I think, for Martina, she literally is the goat of tennis. She has so many masters in singles, doubles, mixed. They always say, who's the goat? Is it Novak? It's easily Martina. She won so many major tournaments in all three, versions of tennis at the same time. It's hard to, question whether or not somebody is the best. Anyway, and when you're like that, every mistake then becomes a headline. Every close match becomes criticism. And, winning isn't celebrated even though you've made it all most of the way. It's sort of expected.
Yeah, I'd say France understands that better than I would say almost anyone. When they reach the finals, people don't say, "What an incredible achievement!" Like as if the U.S. made it semifinals, it would be. But they said, "Of course they did." It's entirely different kind of pressure, and I think this I would say applies far beyond football. If you think about the more successful you become, the more people expect from you. Business experience it, athletes experience it, creators experience it, and sometimes success creates even more pressure than failure.
You disruptors experience it. And I think that's because expectations keep moving. So once you've proven you can do something, people stop asking if you can. They start asking why you haven't done it again. And that's one of the hidden challenges of sustained success.
So if we go back to our wonderful framework, perception, France feels inevitable, one of the strongest football teams in the world. French roulette feels elegant, sophisticated, traditional. Both carry reputations that shape how people think before anything even begins.
Yeah, probability tells a different story. So France can still lose. The roulette ball can still land anywhere on the wheel. Probability doesn't care about the history of that, it doesn't care about emotion. It simply describes what is most likely based on the information.
Yeah, and then there's design. French roulette uses subtle rule changes to create a more player-friendly experience. The World Cup uses knockout format, where one mistake can eliminate even the strongest team, and neither system guarantees an outcome. Both are intentionally designed to create meaningful uncertainty.
I feel that's, zeroing back to the theme of today's episode. So great systems don't eliminate uncertainty, they balance it. Enough uncertainty that every outcome feels possible, enough structure that skill still matters. And that's what keeps us watching.
Yeah, exactly. So as we celebrate, as everyone else in the audience celebrates Bastille Day and watching another World Cup semifinal, I think there's an important lesson in all of this. France isn't respected because they always win. They're respected because they consistently put themselves in position to compete year after year, tournament after tournament. That consistency is incredibly difficult to achieve.
The same is true of great games. So French roulette has remained popular for generations because it has found the right balance between elegance, simplicity, and mathematics. It is the player favorite against other roulettes time and time again from an analytics perspective for obvious reasons. The same principles that make a great game often make great competition: structure, fairness, uncertainty, and just enough possibility to keep everyone believing they can win.
Yeah, so it's a roulette wheel or a World Cup semifinal. No one knows the outcome until it actually happens, and maybe that's exactly why we keep watching. So
Do you have a question for the audience, Tim?
I think I do, but I feel like before we jump into that, we probably say thank you for watching, but also happy Bastille Day for all our French listeners. But the question I have is if France enters today's match as a favorite, what matters more, probability or pressure?
And I think alternatively, if it come when it comes to roulette, Do you prefer French roulette or European roulette, American roulette, Las Vegas strip roulette? You can't say the latter one. That one's horrible. But anyway, have you ever noticed how just one small rule, or in this case, an additional zero, can completely change that experience?
Yeah, and a couple more letters added to Las Vegas Strip roulette could sound quite different. So if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Drop us a like, give us a comment, and if you have any ideas for another country or gaming culture you'd like us to explore, let us know.
You kind of got to wonder why they don't have a steak like the Las Vegas strip steak. Like it'd be completely raw. Is that safe? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for spending part of Bastille Day with us. Enjoy the match wherever you're watching from,
And we'll see you next time.
and believe responsibly. Bye. Boop. Okay.